The Cult of Slaanesh. Take care lest your protests become tiresome. I have asked for so little. Anyone would think that I had asked you to sacrifice yourselves and your sons. And yet, in Slaanesh's boundless and pleasing mercy, I have asked only for your daughters. Surely you would not deny me my small enjoyments. From Tyrell, a renegade lord of Arden 9. Slaanesh is the youngest of the Chaos Gods and alone of the Ruiner's powers. The Prince of Chaos is truly beautiful to behold by mortals. It is as seductive as only an immortal can be, disarming in its innocence, utterly beguiling in its manner, and irresistibly tempting with its words. Slaanesh can assume any alluring physical form at will, and it is impossible for a mortal to look upon it without losing their soul and becoming a slave to the Prince of Pleasure's slightest whim. Mortals that seek charisma and fellowship turn to it, for its gifts can make one popular and inspiring. Poets and artists are drawn to Slaanesh's gaze by the promise of inspiration and fame, while even the hardiest warriors might seek the adulation of the masses and the ironclad loyalty of their followers. Yet, as one continues in the service of Slaanesh, such pleasures soon grow stale, and its servants are driven on to search for ever greater sensations and ever more self-fulfillment until only the most decadent and debased of acts can stir their emotions or provide the pleasure they have come to crave in the purest form of addiction. Slaanesh is also the chaos god of passion, obsession, luxury, art, and indulgence. It is the manifestation of all hidden vices, cruel passions, and secret temptations that mortals hide fearfully in their hearts. This abject lack of restraint, pursuit of pleasures, lures many mortals to its side, often gathering in places of carnal pleasure to pay homage and praise their depraved lord. Slaanesh's followers seek pleasure in every experience, and quickly become inured to more mundane things, including sounds and colors. Thus, they frequently wear garish, brightly colored armor or clothing which is extravagantly decorated. The followers of the Prince of Chaos pursue ever greater heights of experience, seeking pleasure in increasingly extreme and outrageous fashion. Its influence often reaches into the upper echelons of hierarchies, where the greatest luxury and privilege resides, corrupting nobility and the wealthiest of imperial families. It can be seen at its most insidious among those that strive for rectitude, as if the Prince of Chaos takes particular joy in corrupting those that dare to proclaim themselves as upright souls. Even the most pious pontiff of the ecclesiarchy must rest sometime, and when he does, the unconscious desires in his dreams betray him to the master of all carnal joys. The more civilized a society becomes, the more frequently seeds of corruption planted by Slaanesh sprout within it. As leisure becomes widespread due to the technological advance, the unconscious wants of the many are led down dark paths by the subtle influence of Slaanesh. Its worshippers engage in great orgies involving every vice and perversity to praise the Lord of Pleasure, where the death of many through exhaustion and overstimulation is taken to be a sign of the Dark Prince's favor. Its devotees say that any extremity of sensation or emotion can open communion with Slaanesh, for the echoes of its birth scream reside in every mortal soul. They pursue a rapturous, tortured, orgasmic, drug-fueled state of hypersensuality, their souls burning bright and hot like shooting stars as they plunge ever deeper into the psychic maelstrom that is Slaanesh. Countless worlds have fallen into complete anarchy when pleasure cults became so widespread that all order was lost in an insane frenzy of self-gratification. On many, the fall of the Eldari is reenacted in microcosm as society collapses and the howling winds of chaos ravage the world through the minds of its psychers. The handful of gibbering survivors that are sometimes left behind are so changed by the experience that they can no longer be called in any sense mortal or sane. Certain inquisitors of the Imperium have cultivated a particular loathing of the followers of Slaanesh for the corruption they spread so readily through the God Emperor's mortal realm. Their efforts to suppress the pursuit of pleasure inevitably brings an ever-widening circle of recidivists, smugglers, criminals, and black marketers into contact with Slaanesh's mortal adherents. Its servants, by their incantations, conjuration, and accursed crafts, have seduced, depraved, and corrupted both man and beast, bringing them low in the sight of others. Numberless are their enormities and horrid offences, heinous and wicked their every action. Reveling in perversity and debasement, twisted in mind and body, these insidious servitors of the Pleasure Lord take delight in all manner of abominable and unclean deeds. The denizens of Slaanesh spread the depravity of chaos to the unwary and uncaring with heretical crimes that cry out against nature and the true order of the world. Amassed on the field of battle, the electric colors of their contorted forms offend the eyes as their diseased lewdness offends the mind. Half-bared torsos of pink and blue boast of unreined lust. Others display limbs of glistening greens and yellows, pale shades of corruption which belie the darkness they hide inside. They have abandoned the last vestiges of true decency and sacrificed their humanity to serve the dark power of the Prince of Pleasure and spread his corruption among the innocent. Its worshippers are known for their complete lack of fear, as they see even losing a battle or their own lives as a new experience to be enjoyed. While not interested in the dirty warfare of Khorne's narrow-minded berserkers, Slaanesh does enjoy combat of the artistic sort, taking pleasure in watching extremely talented gladiator battles, where the act of fighting is transformed from a means to an end into an art form all of its own. Slaanesh bestows its favor upon any who act on an interest for an art, whether the art is that of combat, of painting, of poetry, or of passion. The favor will aid the artist in creating, amplifying everything created to immeasurable levels, while at the same time corrupting them indescribably, such that any mortals who look on them are at once both entranced and terrified. The mark of Slaanesh combines the conventional human symbology for male and female, although it is seldom worn openly by its followers. In its place, they often wear items of jewelry bearing erotic motifs. Followers dress in robes which are often open to leave the right side of the chest uncovered, a requirement of many of the rituals involved in its worship. Pastel and electric shades are the chief colors, although white is often used as well. These colors are also sometimes carried over into everyday wear, although they may be modified to fit in with current fashions. Regardless of any considerations, all Slaaneshi followers wear garb of sensuously high quality. Slaanesh is served uniquely by the Chaos Space Marines of the Emperor's Children Traitor Legion, hedonistic psychopaths who wield unique sonic weaponry in battle. Slaaneshi Corruption. Those corrupted by Slaanesh at first experience every sensation and new situation with an unbridled sense of wonder and flush of pleasure, feeling every aspect of life as if through new eyes tinted with wonder. But as time goes on, it requires ever more extremes of sensation to feel the same bursts of pleasure, soon leading to a need to be constantly surrounded by extremes of sound or garish color, particularly bright pinks and purples. In time, moral degeneration sets in, as an individual corrupted by the Prince of Chaos engages in only the most extreme behaviors, such as sadistic murder or highly degrading sexual practices, in order to feel the enhanced pleasure offered by Slaanesh. By this point, an individual is usually so beholden to the Chaos God that he or she will begin to be granted mutational gifts by the Dark Prince intended to enhance their pleasure or physical perfection. Groups that have been knowingly or unwittingly corrupted by it often engage in radical body modifications using makeup or clothing, or even beginning to surgically alter themselves if the technology is available, intending to increase their perfection or ability to experience pleasure with every sensation. Ultimately, even death itself becomes an experience of immense pleasure, both dealing it out to others and, in the end, undergoing it oneself. A final moment of orgasmic pleasure before the soul is absorbed by Slaanesh in the Imperium. The enhanced pleasures and sensations experienced by every soul corrupted by it, and all the corrupt things they do to service this need, strengthen the Prince of Chaos in the Warp, where the psychic emanation of such deeds further feed the young Chaos God's power. The Champions of Slaanesh. Across the galaxy, billions of souls give themselves over to it through corrupt acts of devotion, men and women throw themselves upon the altars of degradation, or wear the skins of their loved ones in the hope that their divine lord takes note. For most, this is a futile effort, as most acts of depravity and sin are common in a vast galaxy populated with the insane and depraved. It takes much more to attract attention and be noticed by a god of insidious excess, and true artistic achievements of pain and pleasure. To be recognized as the most devoted of wicked souls requires dedication and effort far beyond what most mortals can achieve. Those who can push themselves ever closer to perfect depravity, who can reach the greatest levels of excess, may be recognized as champions within the ranks of the followers of the Lord of Delicious Torments. For the rest, there is no glory, no reward, only common death, or the short and painful lifespan of a degraded chaos spawn. But recognition as a champion of the Dark Prince comes with a price the chosen are glad to pay. Their souls are forfeit, but the lure of possible immortality in the form of demonhood makes this price a pittance. To stand at the grand stage with the Lord of Sensation in a life forever onwards dominated with unquenchable desires is the one desire truly fulfilled. Now on to the rivalry between the other ruinous powers from Slaanesh's perspective. Slaanesh is said to have little interest in the other ruinous powers, being too caught up in its own pleasures to be interested in alliances or cooperation. However, the followers of Khorne, with their boorish beliefs in bloodshed for its own sake, are particular enemies. Cults dedicated to Khorne and Slaanesh clash frequently in the mortal realm, just as their demonic legions are believed to battle endlessly in the realm of chaos. This relationship has an effect upon the nature of the armies dedicated to either god. Slaanesh's comparative weakness in direct confrontations is balanced by its endless capacity for corruption, often even leading Khorne's faithful astray through their own battle lust. A widespread and technologically advanced conflict is particularly vulnerable to Slaanesh's influence, as a single well-placed convert can have the means to wreck a fleet or destroy an entire city. Wherever Khorne's followers become most strident, those of Slaanesh can be found working subtly in the background to bring about their opponent's downfall. While it is the youngest of the major Chaos gods, Slaanesh is still a crucial player in the incomprehensible great game that they play for dominance. Although it cannot yet hold its own against any one other major Chaos god, its support in an alliance is often enough to swing the balance, allowing Slaanesh considerably more influence than its absolute level of power would otherwise allow. Of all the complexities of the Great Game, the most compelling is perhaps the relationship between Slaanesh and its brother gods. None can amplify Khorne's fury like the Lord of Excess, whose earthly luxuries and lusts defy the blood god's desire for indiscriminate slaughter. The mere mention of Slaanesh or its schemes is enough to cause volcanoes to erupt across the Blood God's domain in the realm of chaos. Though Khorne is the only god openly hostile to the Dark Prince, Nurgle and Tzeentch are also ill at ease in its presence, despite the fact that the most typical hierarchy of power between the four major Chaos gods sees Slaanesh at the bottom. Even they feel the magnetic pull of its matchless charisma and are both attracted and repelled by their younger brother. This is due in part to the fact that all the Chaos gods embody in some form the excess for which Slaanesh is known. Khorne with its bloodlust, Tzeentch with its scheming, and Nurgle with its spreading of plague. Each is an obsession the Dark Prince can turn to its will with merely a whispered promise. Lurking deep within the psyche of each of its brothers is the suspicion that the influence of the Dark Prince is rapidly growing, and that Slaanesh will perhaps one day eclipse them all in strength. With this thought in mind, any alliance of convenience with it is especially short-lived. While this could be attributed to simple distrust of one who changes sides at whim, there is an argument that the Dark Prince's rival gods fear the secret power it holds over them.